Okay, I will call the December 6th, 2022 regular meeting of the Mill Creek City Council to order. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Would Councilmember Allison please lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Holtzclaw,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Vanel,
Here.
Councilmember Cavallari,
Here.
Councilmember Steckler, Councilmember Allison,
Here.
Councilmember Duque, Councilmember Paddock.
And then there were four. Councilmember Paddock notified us a couple weeks ago he is traveling on business this week. Councilmember Steckler contacted me about 5 minutes ago and said he is unable to attend tonight. He's attending to some stuff. And Councilmember Duque is fighting the flu bug that's going around. So can we have a motion to excuse council members Paddock, Steckler, and Duque?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes 4-0. Okay, audience communication. I'll start in the audience. Mr. Elwin, name and address and try to keep it to 3 minutes if you could.
Hello. I don't know if I can do that, but I'll do my best.
Try.
Greg Elwin, 14026 19th Drive, Southeast Mill Creek. I'm here tonight in a different role, although I've spent quite a bit of time in this room, or a minute at least. I've never seen it from this side. So I like the view over here. It's pretty cool. You all look great. I'm here representing the Mill Creek Chamber of Commerce tonight, and just to observe, but I wanted to reach out to everybody. I'm very excited to hear what the EASC folks have to say, because we want to really build a strong partnership between the Chamber and the EASC, much like we want to build a really strong partnership between the Chamber and the city. And we all have a lot of common goals, and building business in our community and around our community is one of those common goals, right? And so we just want to open up. We've got new leadership at the Chamber of Commerce. And so now's the time to kind of kick things off and just introduce ourselves and be ready to go. So thank you all. Have a good evening.
Thank you for coming. Anyone else in chambers? Going online, Mr. Nelson, your turn.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
We can.
Yeah, Will Nelson, 14925 29th Drive, Southeast Mill Creek. Since 1220 is on the agenda tonight, I thought I'd make a couple of comments on it and 1782, which I feel is a companion measure. I've read 1220 a couple of times with great interest, and that is extremely dull reading, as a side note. And I've read certain parts of it more than that. And basically, I came to the conclusion that 1220 is basically a social justice addendum to the Growth Management Act. Others may differ, but that's how I see it. With great interest, I read the in detail the portion. Found it quite interesting, since I'm well versed in thermodynamics and have installed such systems years ago. What I think they have left out there is the long-term financial costs to apartment owners, apartment residents, et cetera. And I think that it's important to recognize that the installation of heat pumps on such a massive scale is going to bring about some significant long-term costs for the owners of such, to the tune of maybe $8,000 to $15,000 every 15 years or so. If you equate that into a monthly rent, that runs between $80 and $120 per month added to the rent for an apartment. That, I think, is significant. Whether or not such a number would actually be directly manifest depends upon a number of other factors, such as the availability of apartments, et cetera. On 1782, if you look at Inslee's statements regarding how much housing we need, and he mentioned 76,000 additional people along I-5 to be served by Sound Transit. If you equate that to the number of farms that we have at the Eastgate Urban Village, that would be, depending upon how you run the numbers, that would be anywhere from about 140 to 210 farms along I-5. That would really make I-5 look really interesting over time. And also regarding 1782, if you took that 17,000 people, 76,000 people, and put them into a single town, and if they were all tax exempt, you would have a city with no police and fire and little else. There's a point of thought, which I thought was rather interesting. A town of 76,000 people that's tax exempt with no police and fire. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Will. Anyone else? Seeing none, there'll be another opportunity at the end of the meeting. With that, I'll turn it over to Martin to introduce our guest speaker tonight, Mr. Clark.
Thank you, Mayor. So I'm proud to announce that we have our guest speakers, our president and CEO, Gary Clark of the Economic Alliance, and Wendy, I'm not sure how to pronounce your last name. Poishbig, thank you. They're here to, we've had some discussions, prior discussions in the past regarding how the Economic Alliance of Snohomish County, the EASC, can help assist the city, given that one of the key priorities that council provided early on for 2022 for the city manager is to develop a strategic economic plan. So we wanted to actually start the discussions, and we thought that again, the catalyst for that might be the Economic Alliance to help us move forward with that. It's their breadth of knowledge and experience regarding the economic landscape across Snohomish County and the region is what helps them bring value to local municipalities. Now, they work with a lot of different organizations, and they're familiar, as we know, with the chambers across the city. And Gary will provide a little history about the depth of expertise they have in that area. But as you know, one of our key partners is our chamber in the city of Mill Creek. So that'll be part of our strategy moving forward. But there's a lot of components to it. And Gary will provide that background. So I'll go ahead and it's already loaded. Hand it over to Gary Clark. Thank you.
All right. Good evening, Mayor, council members, and staff and stakeholders and constituents. My name is Gary Clark, President and CEO of Economic Alliance Snohomish County. I've been in Washington State, Snohomish County for almost 2 years, originally from Washington, D.C., spent some time in Nebraska for about 10 years doing economic development work before coming here. I also have, again, Wendy Poishbig, who is our VP of Economic Development, who's behind me. And we're really excited about the current state of Mill Creek and the future. And so we really want to be a part of that engagement. So we are, as you can see on the screen, the catalyst for economic vitality in Snohomish County. And our history is tied to 2011 merger of multiple organizations, the Everett Chamber, Snohomish County Chamber of Commerce, and others to create what you see here today, which is Economic Alliance Snohomish County. Our vision has been to connect ourselves globally, uniquely located and recognized as a place to be. And our mission, obviously, as I mentioned earlier, is to be a catalyst for economic vitality. And in strengthening communities, that means that we have to have relationships that build that opportunity. As far as our public-private partnerships, we have continued to engage through our designation from the county as the County Administrative Development Organization. That means that we are the leading organization in the county for attraction efforts and business retention expansion efforts. Beyond that, we serve as the countywide Chamber of Commerce. And in that space, I'll speak a little bit about our desire not to erode local chambers, but to amplify their efforts by creating a partnership in that space. Beyond that, though, we've considered ourselves tied to specific pillars of focus to get development, growth growth and efforts together. And so I thought I'd show you really quickly what those pieces are. Advocacy is our primary focus from an organizational standpoint, simply because we know that having a singular voice for the business community is paramount in moving things forward and sustaining Snohomish County. And so this next long legislative session, we plan to have, number one, our own advocacy staffer, but a lobbyist that we've hired to support those efforts in Olympia. So we'll really be looking to have the mayor and our advocacy team connect and coordinate on what your priorities are. Business attraction and business retention expansion, that is led by Wendy Poisbeg, and she is the catalyst for direct business engagement, where businesses are coming to the county nationally, internationally, saying, hey, we want to locate in your region or area. And so she passes that information on to our collaborative partners throughout the county community. Quality of life, we've leveraged this through what we did today, which was also our first annual Snow Code meeting. It was to foster connection between businesses and diversity, equity, inclusion. And so we'll talk about that deeper down the line. Small Business Chamber, we have been a connection point for all of our chambers in the county, and we want to continue to strengthen that when we talk about the Mill Creek Chamber of Commerce as well. And last but not least is workforce talent. We realize that we have a wealth of talent in the Mill Creek area as well as Snohomish County as a whole, but the desire is tied to making sure we're leveraging that connection point from a P20 perspective, from the youth all the way through college. This is just a quick snapshot of some of our staffers. As you can see, our newest staffer is our Director of Government Relations, Rashma Agarwal. And just a few more slides just to show you some of our staffing. We also have a connection point between DOT, U.S. Department of Transportation, and Northwest SPTRC. We serve as the 5-state regional leader, and Andrew Miller is our lead project or program director in that space. We have Kara Buckingham, who is our PTAC counselor. That is a direct engagement for procurement technical assistance. So businesses that want to do contracts with government, they have a partner to help them move that along. And then our investor relations lead as well, Brian Doyle. Behind the scenes, we also have some coordinating workers and staffers. And as you can see there, we are probably clicking around the 13 FTE realm right now. And I just wanted to make sure that you had a snapshot of what our staff look like. Business attraction, and again, this is over the last year or so, and in the last 6 months or so, we've just seen an uptick of engagement due to my partner behind me, Wendy Poisbeg, just doing a lot of engagement throughout the county. And so you can see some of the highlighted projects that have been expanded. You can see the CapEx number currently, and that number is rising because there's still projects pending. And we're just really excited about the fact that, as a quote from a movie said, we're in the economic development business, and business is booming. And so we really believe in the fact that if we figure out what Mill Creek wants, we can continue to push that forward. Another piece here is just job creation, 1,300 jobs in this space tied to some of the projects that have taken place recently. I think, as you can see, we are not operating in just one singular space, but we want to be a part of all county engagement because we realize that collectively we can make a strong fist and a loud boom. As far as business attraction projects, we kind of pride ourselves on making sure that we can give you a holistic review of what's happening from the state perspective, attraction efforts throughout. When Economic Alliance receives a request for a business interest piece, Mill Creek would receive that information to decide whether or not they're interested in going in on that particular RFP. Aside from that, our primary focus is business retention expansion. And this is where it benefits the city of Mill Creek because we're talking about the retention of existing entrepreneurs. But beyond that, though, our focus, as you know, through Snohomish County's history has been largely aerospace, aviation, and now lots of components of space. This is just a snapshot from our collaborative collective investment as far as projects that we've done, and this is kind of a combination of the last year, but also our full 11-year tenure. We are usually in the 50 active projects range on an annual basis. You can see the CapEx estimated number if you think of our collective work, and then you can see the jobs estimated over that time. Top industries, as you all may be aware, this is tied to the overall county, not a specific space. And so you see advanced manufacturing, which is a priority of the counties, and EASC, aerospace, ag and forestry, which we've seen some unique food processing things taking place, and life science and clean tech. But we realize that the heart of our economic development work is in that commercial retail space that takes place in Mill Creek and other places. Just a few examples of landed projects recently. You can see Magniacs being one of them. We're seeing a huge increase in energy projects and organizations that are coming to Snohomish County. ZeroAvia trying to do hydrogen fuel cells for electric motors. And then we also have Eviation that wants to do battery powered planes. And I know that they are currently looking for people to manufacture those types of batteries. Just a quick slide on the ongoing VRE efforts. We connect that to PTAC, SBTRC, and we also have a connection to SBDC, which is the Small Business Development Center. And SBTRC, with all these acronyms, I want to make sure you know who they are. The Small Business Transportation Resource Center is the SBTRC. And finally, to the end point of our direction here, we feel as though our connection point with your city is tied to not only creating a strategy that is tied to economic development work, but connecting with our chamber partnership. And so we've created a model that is similar in other places in the country where the overarching county chamber of commerce can help amplify the existing local chamber. Now that may be by adding a staffer that is staffed under the county chamber, but operates independently through the local chamber so that they have a formalized staffer that is getting paid to only do that work. And specifically the city of Mill Creek, for example, we have started to develop those contracts with other partners. This is just an example of the snow code piece. We want to connect businesses to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we currently have 40 businesses that have signed up for that work. And as I mentioned, we just had our first event, which actually happened today. So that date is wrong, but we actually had that event today. So your question probably might be, what do we want to do in the space of Mill Creek? And so on an economic development committee section, what does it do? So we believe that it would assist the strategy and policy of development here in the city of Mill Creek. We believe that it would provide an inclusive opportunity for local stakeholders and leaders to be a part of the process and ensure that the city development strategy and policy is achieved. But however, if it is created independent of the city coffers, then it has a little bit more flexibility to operate in an open setting and provide more input from the overall community. So EASC is proposing that they would support and help create and manifest this development. So we see our partners at the top, Mill Creek Chamber of Commerce, City of Mill Creek, and EASC. We think this is a 4-step process to develop this space, develop an economic development committee. Number 2, realize that we can't do everything in 1 year, but a 1 to 5 year plan gives us a timeline for short wins, easy projects, and then navigating ourselves through a long space that ties into the overall comprehensive plan of the city. 3, the EASC Chamber Partnership to strengthen the local chamber, as you heard earlier, is an opportunity to make sure that they have a solidified staffer, that we converge on projects, and that they can use our internal services staffers to uplift and amplify the work that they do here. And last but not least, we realize that a stakeholder survey, data analysis, and demographic update for the retail industry is paramount here. A few things about Mill Creek now. We've heard conversations about the DRCC data analysis, trying to figure out exactly what the city wants to do in that space and how to navigate it. We want to be a part of that process to help spearhead that piece. Commercial retail assessment, we feel like that is a priority to continue to push directly for the city. And then a few other items, as I mentioned, the chamber development, but we realize that we have to promote the work that's being done so that these stakeholders understand or are educated on this work, and then show them the plan, and then we can act. So we really feel that words are beautiful, but action is supreme. We'd love to help the city of Mill Creek do that work. I would like to have just a moment for my partner in, I'll say Empower, Wendy Poisbett, to come up and just give just a little bit more of an insight on the economic development services.
Thank you, Gary. Hi, everyone. I just want to take a moment to just explain the process that we would use to provide economic development services. As Gary mentioned, it would be a 1 to 5 year strategy. And, it's a multi-step process that starts by identifying the city's goals, assessing the city's current state, identifying your value proposition, evaluating existing programs, and establishing partnerships. When those steps have been taken, communities are positioned to prioritize specific initiatives. So first, we need to identify your economic development goals, and they should be aspirational but achievable. The goals are divided into 3 categories: supporting business, supporting workers, and supporting quality of life. Examples of supporting business were retaining existing businesses, attracting new businesses, promoting entrepreneurship, and encouraging business growth. By supporting workers, we improve access to local employment opportunities, increase access to advanced education, workforce development, and job training opportunities, and improve the quality of our K-12 education. Supporting quality of life means promoting maybe a vibrant commercial district, attracting stores and services for our daily needs, ensure a wide range of housing types and affordable to different income levels, increase access to open space, parks, and recreation. When we assess the current state of the city, we need to engage in that before we work on our economic development strategy. And it's important to understand the state of the region as well. Its competitive position, its strengths, its challenges, and this requires using quantitative data from sources such as the U.S. Census Bureau, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, as well as the National Center for Education Statistics. An asset inventory would include factors such as employment rate, GDP, specialization and growth by industry, workforce, and demographic breakdown, employment and by occupation, and educational attainment and community connectivity, such as factors like transportation, infrastructure, and access to broadband, childcare, and healthcare. Next, we would identify your value proposition. The value proposition is creating a storyline that answers questions such as, why would someone live here? Why would a company locate here? Why would someone visit? The value proposition can take many forms across sectors, the workforce and community and connectivity. We would evaluate existing programs and initiatives. Any one region can be affected by multiple programs and initiatives, including those from federal, state, and local governments, and from groups such as chambers of commerce and business improvement districts. Take stock of existing programs before developing new initiatives to avoid reinventing the wheel. Next, we would establish partnerships. You can't get anything done without being collaborative, right? And so in addition to government, our nonprofit partners, educational institutions, we also need to look at the other municipalities that may have broader economic needs, shared economic needs that could be strengthened. Next, we would design, after getting all that information, your economic development initiatives. And like Gary mentioned, they could include the creation of a business and expansion and attraction program, the formation of an economic development committee, recommendation for diversification of businesses, infrastructure recommendations, the best use of the DRCC, available real estate inventory, a commercial real estate retail assessment, chamber development recommendations, access to affordable workforce, housing, childcare, and behavioral health programs, entrepreneurship and small business development, placemaking recommendations, and perhaps a promotional campaign. And then next, we would work on our implementation strategy, which would create, EASC would create an action plan that includes specific steps for the city, its partners and stakeholders to take and implement the plan. The plan would identify who is responsible for each step or tactic, the budget or resources necessary, performance measures, and a schedule for achieving each of the action steps. With that, we welcome any of your questions.
Thank you, Wendy. Questions? Councilmember Cavallari.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Wendy, for the presentation. Appreciate you guys coming out here tonight. I have a couple of questions. My first one is how exactly are you guys funded?
Oh, great question. So we do have public-private partnerships. So we are funded on one side from our ADO contract, which is a designation from the county and chamber or county and the State Department of Commerce. And so we receive funds from that place. And then as a county chamber of commerce, we have funds that are just strictly from investors. And some of those investors are municipal governments, businesses, and partners in nonprofit space. Beyond that, though, there are grants that we have. I mentioned SBTRC. That's a federal fund that we've been funded since 2011 in that space. We're also funded to some capacity on a match basis tied to a program called STEM. And so we do get some funds connected to that. And so a lot of our work is public-private funding, Chamber of Commerce, investor or membership funding, and then grants.
And so do the cities pay into Economic Alliance? Is there a fee to be associated?
Yes, while we do the work, however we operate, the only way that we can keep the lights on, doors open, and staffing is to work through a partnership with the cities. Now, depending on the base investment, that can just be a general support. So currently, I believe Mill Creek and others get a general support. They might be to the tune of $10,000 investment just to be engaged as a general support of the organization. That means services that Wendy does currently, you might have some general engagement. But if you go on the deeper elements of partnership, which Wendy just alluded to, that's a different agreement, different contract. And so, for example, we have one set up with the city of Everett. We have one set up with, or potentially actually hasn't been finalized, but set up with a few other cities in the county. And so our job is to make sure that we're creating that vantage point for these communities to have a deeper input. So if those services aren't being met internally, we'd like to provide that to support the cities.
Councilmember Ellison.
So Vince stole my question, so I'm good. I don't have anything else. Thanks.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. And yes, I do see the bills we do contribute into the Economic Alliance annually, I believe. But would we be having any discussion on what the fee structure would look like if we were to undertake these additional services to help aid in our decisions?
Absolutely. We have initiated some initial conversations with the city staff. We can continue to provide that information as we move forward. We have yet to finalize what that scope is. And once you all have agreed to the scope, that will make it easier for us to provide that information. However, we have a ballpark understanding of what it would take to not only do the work on the strategy side to develop your economic development plan, but also if we were to think about Mill Creek Chamber and what that would look like for the economic development partnership piece.
Okay, great. Thank you. I think it's an excellent idea for us to explore this opportunity to work along with Economic Alliance and also to help build the relationship with the chamber as well as part of that component, so that we can work on economic development and bring more businesses into our city. So I am definitely excited for this opportunity and look forward to learning more information.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm excited. Excuse me, I'm excited too. I think we met, I'm trying to figure, we're not sure we figured out when we met with our prior city manager and Mayor Pro Tem and myself. Might have been 2021 sometime. I can't remember when Michael left. You know, we've struggled over the years. We talk about economic development, but I don't know that any of us know what that means or how to go about doing it. And we've struggled because we're of that size where we've debated at times, do we hire someone? How do we go about it? So I'm excited to take this next step to figure out how we can work together with not just you guys, but with the chamber as well.
Thank you, Mayor. I really want to say we are really here because we're excited about your community. We're excited about working with your city staff. We think Martin is excellent. First of all, I love his demeanor. I'm just going to say that. But also just understanding the connection point between all of these entities and how we can support you without having to have an exorbitant amount of funds connected to this. And the same is true with the Chamber of Commerce. We have the manpower and staff to support the Chamber of Commerce. We also have the manpower and support and staffing to support the city. And so we are excited to do this work. We've already been doing this work. You're seeing here, probably close to, I don't want to age you there, Wendy, but I have 15 years of experience, and I'm sure she has about that, if not more. So we're really excited about economic development work, and we believe in the community.
Well, I'm excited to take the next steps and see where this goes. So I encourage you, we're having our annual retreat on the 24th and 31st of January. So I welcome all of you to sit in and listen to those discussions to get a flavor of where we want to head.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you for coming out tonight. Appreciate it. Okay. Now we get to talk about changing the times of the arts and beautification meetings.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So it was brought to our attention by our marketing and communications coordinator, Jody Hawkins, that the AMB board wanted some changes, given that the existing time of 4 o'clock, starting time of that meeting, really does not fit in with, it kind of conflicts with the work and personal schedules of those board members. So a lot of the other boards do start a little later, and it's a little easier to have a later starting time. So we're just bringing an ordinance to change that start time for the regular board meetings to 4 o'clock. I don't know if there's anything else that our city attorney would like to add, but.
See a nod of a head. Grant, anything to add?
No, Mayor, currently the start time for the board is set up in ordinance, so we would need the ordinance simply to change the time. I guess it's worth noting that we have a number of our boards and commissions that have their start times set in ordinance. So this is essentially a housekeeping effort to accommodate the timing needs of the board members themselves.
Thank you, Grant. Any questions for staff or the city attorney?
Did you need a motion, Mayor?
If there's no questions, yes, please.
I mean, I guess I will give a motion. I absolutely support this. Seems like a no-brainer. I was stunned to see that an ordinance change was even necessary for something as frivolous as this, but I could see how the 4 o'clock start time would be a nuisance. So my question is what are they recommending? 5 o'clock, 5:30? I mean, do we have to put it in cement?
I don't believe we have to, but I believe that that's how it was set in the past, and all the other boards are set at a certain time via code. So I'm sure the Grant will be able to elaborate more on that, but the time is 5 o'clock as they want to set.
Roger that. Based on the city manager's comments, I would propose an ordinance changing the start time of the Arts and Beautification Board to 5 p.m. or 1700 hours.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Yes, is it necessary to have the times of the committees in a city ordinance?
Is this required by statute, Grant, that we set the times by ordinance?
It is not. Currently, you have it in by ordinance. One option that we could do, and I would suggest we could do it as a two-step. Recommend that you would proceed with the motion as you have before you, but we could come back and we could make it uniform for all the boards and commissions, that we could set the time by a majority vote of the board in consultation with the city manager. There's two components to this, obviously, Mayor. One is making it convenient for the board members themselves, but also we have staff that provide assistance for these boards and commissions, and we would need to be sure that the board considers the needs of the staff as well.
And that's what I was going to suggest. I think this one board, it's been an issue. So let's get this taken care of and then come back and maybe think about dealing with all of them at one time at another time. Mayor Pro Tem, did you have a question or comment?
Thank you, Mayor. I actually was going to say exactly that. I think it's a good idea for us to go ahead and move forward with this tonight, so it's handled. And I do think it would be an excellent idea for us to do a code review of all of them and go in and change it to wording so that they can decide themselves when they should, what time they should be meeting along with staff, so that they don't need council to bless that every time. It should be up to them and what's most convenient for staff and the members of those boards, in my opinion. So I think that's an excellent idea, and that we really need to move forward with that.
Okay, if there, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions? The motion is approved 4-0. Thank you, Martin. Thank you, Grant. Moving on to new business item B, the Fire Marshal Services interlocal agreement.
So I'm lost. I can't store. So I'm up here. Yeah, share screen. So somebody else share it for me. Thanks. So thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, Council, staff. We're here tonight to talk about the Fire Marshal agreement with South County Fire. So real briefly, the Fire Marshal Service, what do we mean by that? It's development review. So when the new development comes to town, the fire department is involved with, can the fire trucks get in and out? Development review also involved building plans. Has been going on, and we're quite used to that at this point. Thank you. That's something we've been doing for quite some time, and we've been involved in that process, but we've not been involved in fire inspections. That's been done by Surfer under our contract with Surfer. So fire inspections include both new construction and fire inspections for annual inspections for commercial, multifamily, and institutional. Typically, some of those are 1-year cycles, some of them are 2 or 3 year cycle. They're also, fire marshal is also responsible for fire code enforcement if there's violations, or just for new construction as well. Investigations, if there's a major fire, I think it's in the contract, anything over $20,000 is typically investigated. So that's also something to be provided as part of the services. And then just general fire prevention management. So the contract covers all of those pieces. Who provides those services? Well, typically, right now, we're having it done by Surfer under our contract, but as we're aware, that contract is coming to an end. So South County Fire RFA is our new provider coming in 2023. And so they will provide the expertise and the personnel to provide those services. They're presently doing that for the city of Linwood, who's in the RFA via an interlocal agreement, much like what we're presenting here tonight. They also do it for Montlake Terrace, Briar, and Edmonds, which are under contracts. And in the future are looking at joining the RFA, but right now those are in their contract agreements. Is how the fire marshal service provided for those, and by Linwood. In Linwood, it's done by agreement much as this one. And so the idea is to add Mill Creek, who is now also in that RFA, starting the middle of this month under that fire marshal services interlocal agreement we're talking about. Major elements within that agreement. The scope of services in Exhibit A, it includes those things like plan review, inspections, code enforcement, investigations, all those things I listed earlier. Those are all laid out there in lots of detail. The cost is laid out in Exhibit B. That's what we already put in our budget for this year, is $146,525, and that includes a half of an FTE, fire marshal, deputy fire marshal, the personnel to do it with the appropriate administrative overhead for that. And it's the half of the vehicle cost. They have an 8-year amortization schedule in their vehicles. So half of a new vehicle for that fire marshal is included in this. And the Similarly, the fire authority has the other half for other purposes within their budget. We put in this amount, this exact amount for 2023. I think Laurel took and just escalated by something for 2024. We're kind of guessing. It will depend on their labor agreement changes in the future. So you'll see if you look in the agreement, there's some fairly complicated words about what happens if they've got a new CBA in place. But we think we've got a good guess as what it's going to be. The way we've set it up, it's a 2-year commitment. We have not done this before. We have very little data from Serper about what they did. And we are trying to get those records over to South County Fire, but we don't really have much experience. So really, in the first year, 2023, we're going to be learning how to do this and learning how much it takes. And with lots of interactions, periodic check-ins on the level of service and adjusting how much service we need, how much it's going to cost. We figure because they would like to be able to set their annual budget. So by September, they will give us a number that they will be putting into their 2024 budget. So figure year one, which would be 2023, we'll be figuring out getting acquainted. Your second year, we'll be tweaking this. And then after that, it'll be annual renewals. And this is I think is a reasonable approach. They would love to have it be forever because they're making a commitment for a vehicle and the person. We would love to have it be short enough we can make adjustments. That's accommodated in the agreement under paragraph 4.1, 2, and 3. Really talk about how we're going to meet on a fairly regular basis, particularly in the first part of this, to figure out how we adjust the level of service and what it takes. While it is a 2-year commitment and a 1-year renewal, paragraphs 4.1, 2, and 3 allow us to adjust that. So we could turn it way down. If we didn't like what they were doing for us or didn't think it was working out, we do have the opportunity to turn it down or to turn it up. And both parties are very cognizant of how that's going to work. So timing on this, both organizations are considering it tonight. I'm going to disappear at 7 o'clock and go and listen in on the presentation at South County Fire. Their board's considering it tonight, just as you are. Ideally, it will be passed in the same form in both places. That's why it says draft on the copy. You've got it as a draft until both organizations have agreed to that. We do need to get that in place before the first of the year. That ILA services specify a start of January 1, 2023. Question of what's happening between now and then when they take over service on the 13th of this month. And that's covered in the prior agreement. Under the pre-annexation agreement, they'd agreed to take that on whenever they start the service. So we're covered and we start paying on January 1st. On our side, we still have some work to do. I know you said last week you didn't want to talk about fire anymore, but there's still more work to be done. We need to set a fee schedule. And what we found is that Briar, Montlake Terrace, and Edmonds are not charging a fee for fire inspections. That was kind of a surprise to a lot of folks. City of Linwood is, the Snohomish County is. And so we're going to look at what Linwood charges, what the county charges. And if Serper was charging anything, we're going to look at those and have 3 columns that we're going to look at and say, okay, what makes sense in terms of not having a shock to our business unit, business customers or institutional customers, but have a way to start recouping some of that money. That is still a lift to be done. And so that's, the first thing is going to be get those inspection fees set into ordinance. Again, it's in our code that has to be, those fees are part of our code. And then we'll have to set up a process to invoice and collect. And I'm just saying that's not going to be trivial. We thought we were going to be on the coattails of previous agreements. And it turns out that a lot of people are not separating this out. So I'm not saying flying blind, but we're flying with an opportunity to learn a lot as we go. And with that, I got it down to questions and a motion there when you're ready.
Thank you, Mike. Any questions? Councilman Morales?
Could you back up one page?
Yeah.
Is that city is covered starting 12/13/2022?
2022. You're right. Thank you.
Okay.
There's my typo. I always have one.
Thanks. That's the gap, right? In between the,
Yes. Yeah. The transition is going to be their first day of service will be 12/13/2022. And they will take care of us on their nickel until January 1, 2023. Thanks.
Do you anticipate the fee being set separate and apart from any fee study we do citywide on other fees?
I think because we don't have any fees in place for inspections, it would be expedient for us to do that as soon as possible, take a good guess at it, and then do the whole fee study later. So I just don't want to go for very long without the ability to collect some money if we can.
Fair enough.
Good question. I think it's a longer thing. What I just found out from South County Fire today is that Linwood, prior to going into the RFA, and then afterwards did a fairly comprehensive fee survey, fee study on a lot of their fees, like we're talking about doing. And part of that, I think, was fire inspection. So we're going to try to lean on what they did as the work and see if we can model ourselves after that, learn something.
I can't see if the mayor pro tem has any questions, comments. We unshare or partially unshare the screen.
Do that.
Stephanie, did you have any questions?
No, I'm good. Mike addressed my questions regarding the fee schedule, so I'm good.
Then we probably need your cheat sheet back up on the screen.
See if I can do that from here. There we go.
Any further questions? Any motions?
Sure, Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to authorize the city manager, a resolution to the city of Mill Creek authorizing the city manager to execute an interlocal agreement with the South Snohomish County Fire and Rescue Regional Fire Authority for fire marshal services.
Second,
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion passes 4-0. Thank you, Mike. Okay, we're gonna move on to our 2 study sessions, and these unfortunately may end up being shorter discussions and may get kicked over till next week, because I think these are important items that have to be discussed by more than just the 4 of us. So I guess I can tee up the retreat, item A. As you know, we have the retreat scheduled for the 24th and 31st of January. In the packets is a proposed agenda. It's pretty straightforward. Martin and myself and Mayor Pro Tem and Deputy Mayor and Andrew Ballard worked on putting this together. It's really focused on 2 aspects or 3 aspects, relooking at the guiding principles. We started that discussion a little bit last March, diving into that a little more, setting goals and priorities for the rest of 2023, and then looking a little longer term than that. There will be a study session ahead of time at one of the prior meetings to go over the results of one of the survey. That's going to be kind of our homework, and there'll be a little more homework materials to review, but we're doing that so that we can stick with 2 nights, 3.5 hours. We'll start at 6, have a dinner break, and go no longer than 9:30. So we feel comfortable we can get everything done in that time frame. So if you have any initial thoughts or comments on the agenda, share them, but I think we'll need to punt this over till next week so we can get John and Melissa and Sean's input on it as well. But any initial thoughts? No? Okay. And I should have put on this next item B, this should be the Mayor Pro Tem and the city manager. So I will let Stephanie lead us into this discussion.
Thank you, Mayor. As all of you know, we are working on our legislative priorities, and the committee met with the city manager, and we came up with the starting point for some important priorities for us to discuss. I am pulling it up here. So first and foremost, we have on here as one of our top priorities to really get some clarification on the HB 1220 requirements for the GMA. If you remember, that's what we discussed with the income bands just last meeting. And we think it's very important to get more clarification and to really push for what we would like regarding that bill. Also,
Stephanie, 1 second, can someone share the screen so we can put it up? I'm not sure if she was trying to share the screen or not.
oh no, I don't know how to share it. I'm just reading it.
Does someone have the ability to pull it from there we go.
Perfect, thank you. And then also we have on here, it's really important, we bring this up quite often to get some clarification and to really push for the public records reform on RCW 4256. And I do know that also AWC did put something down on their overall legislative agenda for this too, really in regards of exploring ways that we can reduce the impact of abusive public record requests. So that was something that was really important. Also, we thought responding to the Blake decision, getting some clarification regarding that, as well as some clarification on addressing vehicle pursuits for public safety. And that's also something that's on the AWC list as well.
Stephanie, if I could jump in on those, and Chief might know more. My understanding is from the coalition that there is a bill on the Blake decision that is going to be dropped that has pretty broad support. I don't know what it does, but are you aware of that?
I'm not aware of any new language yet.
Okay, I'll try to see what I can track down, because I think Mayor Naring mentioned that his understanding is there's a bill that's going to go forward on the Blake, and that they're close to coming up with a bill that'll have bipartisan support on the pursuit issue. So let me do a little bit of follow-up on that.
Perfect. Also, we had, oops, I just did something to my screen. We had on here funding local infrastructure for stormwater. That's something that we have that's extremely important for the city, is our stormwater. And also AWC has that as a priority as well. So we're joining in with them, which gets us even bigger support. Also, we would like to be advocating for DRCC state funding. This is going to require us to form our plan, and so that we know what to actually be advocating for. We also have the SCCIT regional transportation projects on here, 2 of them. And the reason for this is that they have 2 projects that the county, I believe, is focusing on that will actually greatly impact our city. So we want our legislators to know that it's important to us as well, because it impacts the future travel to and from Mill Creek, and the Orange Transit line as well. I am trying to remember off the top of my head exactly. I think these were at 164 and I-5, and then I'm forgetting the second one.
Yeah, that is correct. That is correct. Mayor Pro
Okay.
Tem is-
And so it's going to really impact the travel in and out of our city, the improvements that they are advocating for making there. So we just thought it'd be important to put our stamp on that as well. And also we have the construction sales tax back into infrastructure for local governments to maintain our streets and infrastructure is something that we think is important. And we put in here a city park improvement funding, because we thought the city may actually want to do something regarding that, so that we could be advocating for our parks. So these were the main items that we have in here. Some of them are actually the AWC. I want to throw out something else in here for some wording. I heard what Mr. Nelson said at the beginning of our meeting regarding HB 1782. HB 1782 was a bill that was introduced last year regarding middle density. And one of the things everyone was concerned about was that it would require us to allow middle density housing within certain distances from transit centers. So that was a concern that we had, among others. That bill did not pass last year. So I did some research today. There is a little bit of discussion that they believe that a different bill may get introduced this year with some of those same requirements that were in there. But the reality is we don't know what that bill is going to look like yet until it gets introduced. So I was looking at what AWC does have on their overall legislative agenda, and they have some wording on there that they are talking about zoning mandates, and that they want to defend against preemption of local land use authority. And so I think this is their way of putting in language in their legislative agenda that would tackle if the legislature decides to put a bill like 1782 again, that would, because that was the main concern, is that it was taking away the ability that we have to do our own zoning and putting it in the state's hands. So without knowing what the bill would be yet this year that they are going to tackle, if they're going to even reintroduce anything, I think it would be smart of us to add some language similar to that AWC did in our legislative agenda, to say that we want to defend against preemption of local land use authority, and know that we will be coming back to revisit this a little bit once we know what bills are going to be dropped this session, because right now we don't know. So some of this will change and some things will become more important as the legislative session begins, if that makes sense to everyone. Does anybody have any questions or thoughts? I see Martin's hand is raised.
Yeah, I should probably log in, but so I can raise my hand. Just some clarification. I know this will be brought forward to our next council meeting, so I just want to make some changes and some comments before we move this forward. Director Todd brought up some ideas about a few of these items, the DRCC state funding, and I to some agree. We're talking about 2023, and it might be a little soon to be asking for funds in that next year, given that this project is planned out to be a little bit further down the road. So I just wanted to bring that up. But it still should probably be on the list for discussion. The number 7 item, the SCCIT, in there has the green line on there. I took this off of some information that we had. I have to double check to see the impact that green line has, but really the bulk, the main piece of it is 164th to 95 interchange. That's kind of where we want to ensure our legislators are focusing on moving forward. So I'll do more research on why that says green line in there for 2027. And then finally in the parks improvement funding, just clarifying that we do understand that the capital funding cannot be used for maintenance. And of course, we'll be using the general fund for that or some other types of funding other than capital. If there are projects that are capital related. So just want to make those clarifications. Thank you.
Councilmember Allison.
Thank you, Mayor. Excuse me. When we were listening to the Economic Alliance of Snohomish County presentation, a thought came to my mind about grant funding, maybe from the Department of Commerce. Is that something that we should entertain adding to our legislative agenda?
We've already approved 2 grants from Commerce. They're funding the missing middle grant that we got, that we all approved a couple months ago. And there's one other grant that we got.
The comp plan general.
Comp plan general.
Plan
Yeah, so
general
we've got
is
a couple $100,000 from Commerce.
okay. I was just thinking specifically for the economic development, funding that extra expense. Maybe that might be something else we could consider, but.
Yeah, I had a comment and a question. My comment would be, I would say we make these our goals for the biennium. I mean, because the state plans is on the funding for 2 years, and I don't think we're going to accomplish all these in one session. So I'd suggest that we make this our goals we're identifying today for the coming biennium, subject to being revised at the end of this session and before the next session. The question I had is for Director Todd, have we assessed how many culverts we may need to replace at some point in the future to unblock fish passages under the culvert case?
My understanding is we have close to 0 that are
well,
on the list. That doesn't mean the list won't change. There's a couple of private ones that I think that happened before. For other folks who are listening, we talked quite a bit about the fish culvert issue when we were redoing the bridge on 35th. That's where it came up. And I had some concerns at the time that there were some culverts between North Creek and the 35th Avenue Bridge. And apparently there's nothing on the list yet, but that is something I think we should.
okay, that's good if we're not on the list, but I was thinking of that when I saw item number 5 up there. Did have something coming our way. Just there is a the tribes brought a case against the state a couple of years ago that resulted in a judgment requiring all fish passages to be unblocked over the next 20. I mean, it's a big number that they're talking about that jurisdictions are going to be struggling with for 15 or 20 years, and how do they come up with the money to fix? So it's
I
good that
think
we may
supporting
not.
our fellow cities on that would be good. And we even have
Yes.
some private entities that are helping. So I think that's an important thing for the city to support whatever EWC is going to do.
Yeah, and we're still hoping to have Representative Berg and Senator Lovick in next week, or either virtually or in person, to have a discussion on these topics as well, so. Any other thoughts, comments, questions? Okay, Martin, we'll put this back on the agenda next week to get input from the other three to see if they have anything additional. Okay, with that, we've come to our reports for the evening. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. The first report we have is just want to report on the event that we had last weekend, which is the Santa Parade and the tree lighting, which went pretty well. We realized that there was always room for improvement, and I think that's something we'll debrief on for the entire year across all of our events. But we had probably, over 1,000 people there. There were quite a few, probably 3 or 4 times more than we had last year. So it was well attended, and thanks to our marketing and communications who put that together. Along with our, I think it's the Mill Creek Business Association as well. So, and then I'll pass it on to our Deputy City Manager, who will provide a staffing report.
All right, so I am excited to announce that we officially have a new finance director that will be joining us on January 9th. Our new Public Works Maintenance and Operations Manager has accepted an offer and is currently in backgrounding. We have second round interviews for a planning manager tomorrow. And last week was our Deputy City Clerk's last day. We posted the position Friday, and this morning we had over 70 applications for the position. So I think we'll be all right on this one.
Good.
And then for the police, I'll hand that over to Chief.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem Council. Quick report on staffing from the police department. I'm happy to report again that we have accepted conditional offers for every department vacancy that's currently existing. So our record staff is now up to full staff. We have the last employee starting January 3rd, and her training will commence immediately. And we have two entry-level officers in the academy right now. They'll be joined by a third on the 17th or 13th of this month. And then we're hoping to get our last entry-level candidate into the academy shortly. We do have a sergeant selection process that's going to happen on December 12th, and that's to replace the vacancy that my appointment created. And then we'll have another entry-level test on the 13th to establish a list of eligible candidates. We anticipate the possible loss of 1 officer next year. So, and that's it. Any questions?
In my office, we call Friday Good News Fridays. I guess we're gonna have Good News Tuesdays here at the city now. So, good reports. Anything else, Martin?
That'll be all, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. I just had a couple things. Thank you again to staff for the tree lighting ceremony. It was cold, but a great event, big turnout. I hadn't been there for a number of years, and it was substantially larger than what I remembered. So it's a good turnout. I thought I had a Snohomish County meeting tomorrow, but I can't find it on the agenda. So we may not have a meeting now till January. So if I do have one tomorrow night, I'll attend. If not, I'll attend the next one. Mayor Pro Tem, any report tonight?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to join in with everyone else and thank all the staff and volunteers and the chamber for the great work on the Santa Parade and tree lighting. We, Cora walked in and I walked with the Girl Scouts and of course participated in the tree lighting, and the parade ran really smooth. Everything went great. There's so many people having a great time, and it's just really nice to see us back building community and doing these great events that bring us together, because that's really what everyone needs right now. And I also want to add on top of this that I noticed that a member in the town center that has a business there posted on Facebook thanking everybody that they had a lot of people that came out to the event this weekend, actually did come in and buy things from the store, and it went well, and they were really excited about that and thanked everyone for all their business on Saturday, or it was Saturday on Saturday. So I think that was a great success to bring people in and actually get them to spend money while they were here and help our small businesses. So great job all the way around. Also, I just want to take a moment and acknowledge that I have been seeing our police officers driving around in the mornings when I'm taking Cora to school. And also when I'm picking the days I have to pick her up, I see them driving around through the school zones and out and about. So they are out there, and I hope everybody is driving the proper speed limit. And kudos for the fact that I'm seeing them out there more and more these days. Really appreciate it. And that's it.
Councilmember Cavalieri.
Thank you, Mayor. Just piggyback on everybody else's comments. I had my twin nieces over the weekend, babysat them, so I was able to take them to the parade and tree lighting. And it was a great time, well attended, as everyone else has stated, and a very educated group that everybody went and got their coffee at the same time. And when the parade was over, they all followed behind the back of the parade. It's like they knew exactly where to go and what to do. So it was kind of cool watching that community activism. And my last comments are to this management staff here for the job well done, for hiring and filling these spots, these vacant positions, and taking all of that very seriously and making that priority one. And here we are looking to be fully staffed, and it's pretty impressive. So in a very short amount of time, by the way. So well done, everyone. Thank you.
Councilmember Ellison.
Yes, thank you. Just to mimic what everybody else said, it was great to be out at the parade, to have the parade back this year, and to have so many people at the tree lighting. Compared to last year, it was kind of amazing. You couldn't hear the choir singing because there were so many people. And that was actually a positive thing in my mind, that there were so many people that were participating. So good job, staff. Also very, very, very good to hear that the staffing at the city and the police force, all that, good news. Thank you for working so hard. I think that's all I have. Thanks.
I forgot to add, thank you, Greg, for coming out on behalf of the chamber. I think we've had a good start this past year. I appreciate getting invited to give the state of the city last summer. I hope I can do it again. And with the connection with you and Shelley, we've had a number of new business openings that we've been glad to participate in. So look forward to continuing that relationship in the coming year. With that, audience communication, anyone like to take another bite at the apple? And Mr. Nelson. Turn on your mic and unmute, and you have the floor.
Yeah, Will Nelson, 14925 29th Drive Southeast, Mill Creek, obviously. One comment on culverts. A while back during the low water event, I thought I observed some culverting in Penny Creek under Village Green Drive near 149th, where it goes underground and then reemerges on the other side of the street, although I could be wrong. And on my previous comments, I didn't want anybody to misinterpret them that they were anti-green. They were not. Even though I worked in the nuclear power field, I'm pretty ambivalent where my electricity comes from, as long as it's there when I turn on the light. My main concern on some of this legislation that comes forth, 1782, 1220, in addition to some of the technical stuff, is I see big ideas, but I see not much discussion on who takes care of the last mile or two on some of this stuff. And I really think that last mile or two on charging EVs for cars et cetera, really needs to be attended to and looked at. End of comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Will. Anyone else? Seeing none, we've reached the end of our agenda. So at 7:10 PM, I will adjourn the meeting and we will see everyone on the 13th. Have a good evening.
Good night, everybody.
Night.
Good night, Stephanie.
I'm like, it's so early. What am I gonna do with myself now?